Houston, slightly less than 1 minute to ignition, and everything is go.
What's in a vision?
This is Control, approaching A6, Zone 3. Control, closing choke in A6, Zone 3.
Clairvoyance?
This is Houston, cutoff is right on the nominal.
Detecting particulate production in B9, Zone 7.
Brilliance?
3.3 on the bill.
Region Control, geoform activating cartridge B9, Zone 7.
We think of vision as determination.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
We got a lighted horizon.
Copy you, Control. Injecting inhibitor, over.
Combined with talent and technology to reach a common goal. A quest to take our understanding to new depths.
And here we go. Confirm ignition, and the thrust is go.
Baker Hughes Control, clear to connect to the reservoir.
Roger that, Houston. Connecting to the reservoir. Well, it's flowing. Looking good.
Delta BC on EMS 3.3. Beautiful.
Welcome to Baker Hughes and the Living Well Vision 2020.
Please welcome Mr. Brad Baker.
Wow, that's inspiring. For those of you old enough to remember the moonshot, some of you know you are, that was also a defining moment in our history. In the oil and gas business, we're about to have another defining moment in our history. Hi, I'm Brad Baker with Baker Hughes. I'm third generation oil field, and these are really exciting times in the completion business. Why? Because the game's changing. It's changing a lot. In North American shale plays right now, we are producing oil and gas out of what is basically solid rock, something we couldn't do just 10 years ago. In the Gulf of Mexico and the lower tertiary plays, we're spending $100 million to $200 million drilling a well 6 miles deep, producing over 40,000 barrels a day and more, all through a pipe about 5 inches in diameter, about as big as my fist, smaller than that. It's amazing stuff, amazing technology. That's like sucking a milkshake through a straw on an airplane 30,000 feet in the air, and we're doing that today. So what is driving all this change? Well, that's simple. The easy oil's gone. You know, in the past, you may already know this, but most of the reservoirs, we only get 20 to 30% of the oil in place out. That means we leave behind 70 to 80% of the oil in the ground. Completions was an afterthought. Drilling was the king of the day. And how fast you could drill a well and get to the next one and drill another one, rates on bit, penetration rates, accelerated drilling curves was the big order of the day. So we have to change that. When we had to leave completions behind, what do? Just drill a whole bunch of other wells. That's silly. What a waste. What a waste of resources and time. So completions need to change as well. So enter the living well. So what is this living well? Well, today we have intelligent completions. That's a big deal in the business right now. And we do. We have gauges that can give you pressure and temperature at source. We have hydraulic sleeves and even electrical sleeves now that can open and close on demand. We even have fiber optics that you can actually listen to a frac right now or do VSP and microseismic with. But it isn't enough. In the future, a living well, if it existed, because it doesn't exist yet, a living well will be able to talk to the reservoir. A living well will be dynamic. It will move with the reservoir. A reservoir is an organic thing. Properties change over time, and our completions needs to change with it. So a living well will be able to sense these changes and change with the reservoir, increasing recovery factors up to 80%. A living well will have deep sensors in the reservoir so that they can talk to each other. Maybe entire fields talking to each other so they can balance out the inflow and build safer completions and depletion plans. A living well, if we do have a problem of hot spotting or erosion, a living well will be able to heal itself dynamically, all at the touch of a button. And that's our Vision 2020. And at Baker, we've had this vision for a long time. And in the future, every well will have a living well. Now you may be saying, hey Brad, what are you smoking? That sounds crazy. How long is that going to take us to get there? Decades? 10, 20, 30 years? We're going to do this in just 7 years. Like in our Vision 2020, it's a little bit about what IBM did in the early 90s. You know, IBM used to sell big mainframe computers and hardware, stuff like that. In the early 90s, they moved their business to complete selling IT solutions, scrapped all the hardware, revolutionized the whole industry, made their competitors and customers change the way they do business. In the oil field, as much as we like to think we're selling completions right now, we sell widgets. And we need to move away from selling oil field widgets to oil field solutions. So that brings me to how are we going to do that, Brad? We need a plan. How are we going to get there? We need a boost, and I call that boost pay zone management. So what is pay zone management? Pay zone management is a mindset, a thought. It's actually pretty simple. Pay zone management is all about recovery factors, maximizing the pay zone, eking every single drop of oil out of the reservoir. And this is where we need to drive the business. Just like a Saturn V rocket, bringing all that cool Apollo stuff to the moon, pay zone management will be our rocket, bringing ourselves to the living well. And as JFK said in 1962, we will do this before the end of this decade. Now, we might not be able to use Apollo technology to do it. We'll have to use more like Mars mission technology. And today, we don't have this technology. We don't have the equipment, we don't have the materials to do it yet, and people are just starting to think up the thoughts. But this is the future. Let me describe a little bit more about this and the whole concept around pay zone management and the reservoir. I'm going to go over here to my magic board here. You know, in the business, there's basically 3 disciplines. There's drilling, completions, and production. So let me draw the earth here, my magic finger in Baker blue, and talk a little bit about drilling. So here's a rig. We start drilling. So drilling over the last couple of years has been pretty optimized. You know, we have closed loop drilling systems now. We have very good MWD, very good sensors that can pick up what strata we're drilling through. So this is pretty much optimized. We can pretty much drill standing on one leg with our tongue sticking out now and hit a target within 1 or 2 feet. But what we're really trying to do is get to this reservoir. And this is really where the completion starts. But traditionally, we've been calling completions this production phase, where you go from the reservoir and button it all back up to the top, put it in a truck, and driving it to market. In the past, we've been focusing on all the widgets to do this, and we haven't really been focusing here. And this is where it's all happening. This is why everybody's doing it, right? To get all the juice out of this reservoir. Maximize pay zone recovery factors. So I'll talk a little bit more about the functions around pay zone management. It's kind of like, we'll go back to the Saturn rocket. It's just like it, Saturn rocket has 4 stages. Pay zone management has 4 stages I want you to listen to today. Stage 1 is understanding. You know, how are you going to get somewhere if you don't even know where you're going? So when it's a reservoir, every reservoir is different, right? So you have to understand the porosity, the permeability, the reservoir parameters, the fluids. How are you going to produce it? How hard are you going to draw it down? You know, how long are you going to, is it a 1-day well? Don't do anything, you know, it's a 30-year well, a complete different business. So you need to understand that before you even start. Otherwise, you won't even get off the ground with your rocket. So stage 1 is understanding. Stage 2, once you've drilled the well, you need to connect to the reservoir. This is a very important stage. So when you connect to the reservoir, I look at a reservoir sort of like a big old juice box. So how many of you guys drink those kids' juice box? Or drink your kids' juice? I drink my kids' juice box. Right. But you know, gosh, those straws are terrible. You know, you got to get that in there. You got to get it all kind of right. And the stuff goes all over you. You know, you kind of squeeze on it too much, juice is everywhere. If you don't put it in the right place, you're losing juice everywhere. Well, a reservoir is similar to that. It's a box of source rock with juice inside, right? And when you open that reservoir, you know, how you connect to the reservoir is going to determine how much juice you get out. So, I mean, you know, the radon bit when you enter the pay, the fluid you're using again, the way you've sized the formation grains if you're gravel packing to the strata that you're trying to hold back, debris-free gravel pack charges, all kinds of things like that can affect connectivity. So you do understand it right, and if you don't connect right, you've got pretty much a juice box all over the floor, right? And you leave a lot of oil behind. Okay, so let's say we understand that. We've connected, we've got a little straw in the juice box correctly. And the next step is enhancing the wellbore. So in the past, enhancing has pretty much, you think about holding that juice box open. You know, don't squeeze it too hard or a whole bunch of stuff will come out, or how you produce it matters, right? So enhancing is primarily things like large fracs from the reservoir boundary back, stimulation. Enhancing could be doing nothing because, again, it's only like a 5-day well, so why do anything, right? But it's because you've understood what the customer is asking, you'll apply the right kind of enhancing. But the primary point here is that once you've drilled the well and you've connected to the well correctly, you've got to make sure you hold it open as clean as you can for as long as you can. And that's enhancing, okay? So, okay, now we've understood what we're doing. We've got our little straw in the juice box. We've got it held open. We've enhanced it as best we can. And the final, and they're all important steps, but this is a really important step, is maximizing conductivity. So conductivity here, we're talking about from the reservoir boundary all the way through to the near wellbore, all the way up to the surface. So you don't want to build a perfect completion and then stick a little nipple in the tubular somewhere, or not size your artificial lift program correctly, or put some sort of damaging emulsion into the reservoir. That would ruin everything you just did. So maximizing conductivity is very important. It's like you build the perfect milkshake, then you stick a straw in it, you can't get anything out, right? That would be silly. So all these steps together is what pay zone management is, and how we can maximize recovery factors, which is what it's all about. So why don't people do this? It's amazing how many people don't do this. Matter of fact, most companies don't do it at all. And in the oil field, we've primarily gone with one size fits all. For years, we've been developing products, not solutions, and kind of giving it to our customers and going, hey, or make this fit, right? Instead of understanding the bigger solution. One size does not fit all. And at Baker Hughes, we understand that it's all interrelated. It's like gears working together. Things must be fit for purpose. Otherwise, you will never be able to increase recovery factors. And that's what pay zone management philosophy is all about. So when you talk about fit for purpose, Baker Hughes is one of the best companies at this. And I'm going to give you an example, because we've been doing it for a while. As a completion company, we're pretty good at this. There's an operator in the UK, and he had a very shallow formation with a very small lens. And to complete this field, he was going to have to drill many vertical wells, which have cost a lot of money and a lot of platforms and subsea wellheads, and it pretty much make the project marginal. And they even had to maybe cancel it. So we came in and said, look, instead of drilling all these vertical wells, why don't you just drill a couple of long horizontal wells all the way across your formations and complete it that way? And to make matters worse, this stuff had a very low frac gradient, so it had to be gravel packed. And never before has anybody gravel packed 10,000 foot wells. And they were saying, you guys are crazy. But you know, we designed the procedures and the applications to do that, and that's exactly what we ended up doing. So we took the solution first and didn't let the application bother us, and then figured out how to do it second. And in the end, we did actually do 8,000, 10,000 foot horizontal wells. And in the first phase, we produced 10 times what they wanted, prolific field that they had, all with one platform. And that original project was planned for 8 platforms, so we saved them a lot of money. So that's pay zone management. Figure out the solution first. And don't worry about the applications of widgets you have, and then let the applications come second. You know, as Baker Hughes, our founder, Carl Baker, always said, always be working on something new. And at Baker, we are the company that can do pay zone management better than anybody else. Because in the completion business, we're the oldest company. We have the legacy. We have lots of firsts. You know, we have inflow control devices that balance out reservoirs. We invented the packer. We invented geoform. We invented non-damaging fluids. You know, right now we're leading the industry in italics. All these firsts around solutions. So we are the first company that really can grasp this and take advantage of this. So pay zone management is not only for high-end wells as well. You can also use it on low end. It's a process, right? So there's an operator in the Far East, and they had lots of people that they had to keep busy. And their primary target was to keep all their people busy and meet their minimal production rates. So we came in and they said, hey, we want to go faster. We want to drill wells quicker and quicker than we're drilling them now. And as a completion company, we were like, you're going to ruin your wells if you do this. So we don't matter. Just get us a solution. You know, understand what we're saying. Get us a solution around going faster. So we invented a tool called the multi-zone single trip tool, where you can complete wells in one trip in a well. And we actually reduced their completion rates from 12 days to 3 days. So we went faster. And they were happy, and things were good. And then a couple of years later, they came to us and said, hey, we don't like this multi-zone single trip tool. You're ruining our wells. So we understood that we needed to change. And so we did. We actually created a new system of open hole, long horizontals that they have never done in those fields. And the very same field, offset wells, we quadrupled their production rate and increased the longevity of their wells tenfold. So that's pay zone management, another process. It was on low-end wells. These were not prolific wells. So that process works anywhere because we're listening to what the customer says. We're trying to maximize the reservoir as much as we can based on what our customer needs. So people effect. You can have all the technology you want. You can have all the great pay zone processes you want, all the cool drilling and completions. But if your people don't think this way, then you're lost. And a lot of people in the industry don't think this way. Right now at Baker, we have really embraced this, We've formed teams of knowledge networks, IPT teams. An IPT team is an integrated project team where different people come together to collaborate and share ideas over a bigger and broader solution. Bigger and bigger and better, right? Everybody working together in harmony, moving together towards a final solution. And the bigger the solution, the better. So you don't want to focus on the widget, focus big. I'll give you another example about the Middle East where people, and this is a people pay zone management thing. In the Middle East, we had an operator who had very prolific wells. And for years, he would just produce the wells and they would just stand up. We had already developed a solution for these wells. And our own people, because we weren't using the pay zone mindset, just kept letting them do it. And then a couple of years went by and the competition got stiffer. And we came in and said, look, this sand thing's getting ridiculous. You definitely have a lot of sand in your wells and you're wasting resources. You're wasting the planet, basically. Let's do something about this. And their upper management caught on to that. And you have to let them turn it all around. So we came up with very long wells with inflow control devices, the first company to do it, that also provided sand control when they needed it. And we also put them in their carbonate reservoirs as well. Even though there was no sand, they needed that as well. And balance out the inflow and increase their recovery factors almost double. And these wells are almost the most prolific wells, some of the most prolific wells on the planet today. So that's how people's mindset, listening, providing a solution, changed how those wells were produced. So if you get anything out of what I'm saying today is begin with the end in mind. How are you going to get somewhere if you don't know where you're going, right? So you got to reverse engineer. Pick a solution and work backwards like they did on the Apollo program, right? That's the mindset I want. And the other thing is to think about maximizing recovery factors. It's all about the pay zone. We're creating knowledge networks around this and community of practices at Baker because I think it's so important. As a matter of fact, we're the industry knowledge thought leaders on this today. So it's an exciting time. Living wells, they'll be expensive, but let's look at the value. Right now, at best, we get 40% of oil out of the ground. Imagine if we could get 80%, and that's what a living well could do. Imagine that value. There's an operator in the Gulf of Mexico says for every % recovery factor they increase, they gain $3 billion in value. It kind of makes the equipment inconsequential. That's where we need to go. And at Baker Hughes, the living well's not here yet, but this is a lot of cool stuff and an exciting time where we are actually inventing right now all the things we'll need. Nanotechnology, so we can do new steel, new materials. Fluids that can form shape memory polymers to fill annulars and voids. Downhole deep sensing telemetry that can talk to each other across thousands of feet between rock. And then you have to have the power, the downhole power, to drive that at 30,000 feet for 30 years. We're pulling it all together at Baker Hughes. So this is our moonshot, the living well. And pay zone management, intelligent completions will take us there. It'll be our defining moment. Dynamic, self-healing, maximized wells. That's truly one giant leap forward.